Looking at Pete's new power rankings, there is a new number one. The Eagles, number one, followed by the Ravens, the aforementioned Titans. Pete, get in here. Pete's biggest riser, up 9 spots to number 18. Here they come. Our apologies to Pete. We're not going to talk about Will Levis in this segment, but we did mention that they're the highest riser in your rankings. This is wild, Pete. I mean, all these teams that you had at the top for weeks and weeks are starting to fail, and now the Eagles on top, baby.
Isn't it amazing how this thing turns around like every other week? It's somebody different.
What do you mean this thing? It's your thing.
No, I'm not talking about the power rank. I'm talking about the NFL, period. Okay. Just when we think a team is ready to be anointed as the great team that's going to get to December, you see what happens to the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, 3 weeks ago, people were talking about them going undefeated. Brock Purdy was Joe Montana. The defense was the 85 Bears. And now all of a sudden you look at them and they lost 3 straight.
And without Deebo Samuel, mind you, and some other injuries as well have played a role in that. But I think the interesting part is just there's so much parity in the NFL, but also the schedule making. I mean, that's the other thing when you look at the 49ers. Going through a difficult slate sometimes ends up hitting you, especially when you have the injury bug. I'm more curious, though, about that number one spot because you dropped out a team that's been there for a while, and you seem to give everyone else the benefit of the doubt of having a bad week or this and that, but yet not in this case.
What, the Chiefs?
Yes.
Well, they didn't play very well. And I know, oh, Patrick Mahomes was sick, but it was more than that. They did not play very well.
I get that, but you've given other teams the benefit of the doubt. You've given the Eagles the benefit of the doubt when they dropped one earlier this season.
I didn't give the Chiefs the benefit of the doubt this week. I took it at them.
Well, you have the Eagles number one. Do you think that they're the best team in football right now?
They are right now. They have issues too, though. It wouldn't surprise. I mean, they can't stop anybody. I mean, they have major issues on the defensive side of the ball. Everybody has flaws. That's the point. I think we forget that sometimes, and we rush to anoint these teams. You know, you go back to the 49ers, you keep saying they have the injuries. Yeah, Deebo Samuel's not there, Trent Williams is there. The defense is all there.
Sure.
Every bit of it. And they've been gassed. The teams have been thrown all over them the last couple of weeks. So that's the concern. But, yeah, the Eagles gave up a bunch of points last week.
Yeah, but they can also score a bunch of points with guys like A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. And I think that's one of the things that stands out to me is, look, Jalen Hurts has not been 100%, but he's still putting up numbers. They're finding production. He's that guy you want there as your quarterback, that leader. He's going to fight through everything and going to be able to make plays downfield like we've seen A.J. Brown do, something we haven't seen ever before in NFL history, how consistently productive he's been. So despite some of those defensive issues, which they'll get better, you know, I think as they get healthier and as Kevin Byard gets, you know, ingrained into it, they're going to be a better defense. Right now, you can make the case they're up there at number one. I still think the Chiefs. Yeah. I still think you give them the benefit of the doubt. Divisional matchup, you know, they've played twice in the last 3 weeks. Mahomes a little bit sick.
Terrible against a terrible team.
I understand, but I give them the benefit of the doubt in this case. A healthy Patrick Mahomes.
They're number one in your. They're
yes.
Chiefs are still
and they've been number one in your book more often than not. So this is
usually, yeah, because I defer to Patrick Mahomes usually, just like I used to defer.
It's
to
funny how he gives certain teams mulligans, like the Cowboys. You've given the Cowboys a couple of mulligans, but not the Kansas City Chiefs. Let's move on to number 3, and that would be Pete's Jacksonville Jaguars.
This is your list.
Well, they're number 3 on my list. Doesn't make them my team.
Well, they're your number 3 team.
They're not getting
your Super Bowl pick,
they're not getting the credit they deserve for what they've done in the last 5 weeks.
5 straight wins.
And going into 4 different stadiums to do it, that's impressive. I mean, they really have played well, and I don't think you've seen the best of them. I think offensively, they're still off. They're still not playing at the level I expected them to play. They're getting there, but they're still not there yet. Defensively, I think they're a bit of a surprise. I think they've played better on the defensive side of the ball than many people expected, including myself. And I think getting guys back will only help them. They stopped the run, Brady. That helps their pass rush because they're good against the run.
Well, this past week, too, it seemed like with Pickett getting knocked out, maybe the weather played a little bit of a factor, but Pittsburgh almost resorted back to what they'd been earlier this season. That was part of it. But give the Jaguars a ton of credit. I think if you look at the top 3 teams in the AFC, it's KC, it's Baltimore, it's Jacksonville. And I think to your point, you said this at the beginning of the season, that schedule sets up very well for them to potentially be the number 1 overall seed, playing in the AFC South, a little softer in the division, but this team's kind of shaping into form, and their defense has been the best part of the team, which is not what we thought. We thought it was going to be Trevor Lawrence, driven by Calvin Ridley, these big plays in the passing game, and it's been some of that, but more so the defense, the most consistent piece.
They lead the NFL in takeaways, and that was what keyed them down the stretch last year. They take the ball away. They're not a dominant defense, but they do take the ball away.
Some really big games coming up in the NFL over the next couple of weeks. The Jags have a bye, then they host the 49ers. We talked about the Eagles. They'll host the Cowboys this upcoming week. And the Chiefs, they take on the Dolphins in Germany. but they've fallen all the way down to number 6, down 5 spots because Mahomes was sick.
You're accountable if you play. You play, you show up,
so
you're
accountable.
Sat out.
They should have sat out.
You would have dropped him as far?
Probably not, but he's accountable. And they didn't look great. They just didn't look like they were a dominant team on Sunday.
Call it what
now go beat Miami.
Call it what it is. They have not rounded into form on the outside of wide receiver.
Correct.
We've seen moments of it. A couple weeks ago, we saw moments of it.
Right.
But when Kelsey isn't highly productive, Pacheco and all that, they're missing that other dominant piece or consistent piece at wide receiver right now. They don't have an extra guy to truly rely on week in and week out when they need it the most. And that guy's going to have to develop. They've got to find that guy before the playoffs start, because if not, they might not have the #1 overall seed, and they could slip up on the road, as we saw this past week on the road in Denver versus a divisional opponent.
I'm with it. Their schedule is tough, so it's going to be a challenge for them to end up with the #1 seed. They do have to pick it up on offense. 100%
This is ridiculous, though. They're at a minimum a top 4, if not top 3 team. I don't care.
Go beat Miami, they'll move back up again.
Yeah, of course.
You really don't think they're a top 5 team right now?
I mean, who are you putting them over?
Pretty much everyone. That's in front of them, with the exception of right now Philly, because of how they're playing. Who do you have at number 2?
Baltimore.
Okay, Baltimore I'll put but they're right there. 3.
#1 defense.
He has the Cowboys at 4.
Come on.
You really think the Cowboys are better than the Chiefs, Pete?
They've played better.
Get
The
out
last
of
2
here.
weeks, they played better.
You don't even see the 49ers in the top 10 anymore. They are down to number 11 after a 3rd straight loss heading into the bye week.
Take a look at what their defense has been the last couple weeks against the pass. They've given up over 600 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. They haven't got to the quarterback as we expected them. When they got to 24-17 on Sunday, the old 49ers would have sacked the quarterback, got the ball back, went down and won the game. They didn't. All Joe Burrow did was go bing, 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 right down the field, touchdown, game over. And so that's the biggest difference for me. We could talk about Brock Purdy melting down in big moments and not playing well when the game is on the line, because that's all true too right now. But the fact of the matter remains, their defense has been bad. What are you shaking your head? Go defend the quarterback again.
Okay, first off, you throw out a stat. The past 2 weeks, right, all the yards they've given up. They played against Kirk Cousins, who arguably has been playing at an MVP level before he got hurt.
Correct.
MVP level.
Right.
And then Joe Burrow, who's potentially could end up being the MVP if they keep this up. And the reality is, it's a bad matchup for that defense with the way, to me, both those quarterbacks can exploit what their weakness is. And we've talked about it. The secondary able to match up against teams like that. I get you're obsessed with the pass rush. You can game plan around that. You can keep 6, 7 in protection and still find those matchups.
Brady.
That's what Cincy did. That's what Minnesota did.
I get it. I get it. But you got to get to the quarterback. You have to get to the quarterback. If you have Nick Bosa on your team and the rest of those guys on that defensive line, Hargrave and
this may be shocking to you. Nick Bosa being on the San Francisco 49ers is not a secret anymore. No. Teams are going to game plan to take away his impact.
So what you're saying is when you get no sacks against the Minnesota Vikings, okay, well, that's
You
good.
give credit to the Vikings, their personnel, and their game planning. And on top of that, you say, look, Kirk Cousins had a heck of a day.
He played great that day.
Joe Burrow had a hell of a day.
With no Justin Jefferson, and he carved them to shreds. So that's what they're doing. They're setting out the cutlery and letting everybody just carve them up like a Thanksgiving turkey.
The reality is, if you don't think they're a top 10 team, top 6 team, you're out of your mind.
Right now, they're not.
You're out of your mind.
Can they get to it?
Yes.
Did
you take on a different costume or character for Halloween today?
Right now, they're not. You lose 3 straight, and you're giving up that kind of yardage on defense. You're not a top
You've
10
gone
team.
mad.
No,
you must have changed your personality for Halloween today.
I picked them to win the Super Bowl, so I'm not real confident in that pick right now.
This is a really interesting one as well. The Minnesota Vikings, who have reeled off some wins in a row, they're coming off another win. They dropped 4 spots. Now, I get it. You're going off the fact that they won't have Kirk Cousins the rest of the way. What should Minnesota do at this point? Because you look at the schedule they've got coming up. They've got no winning teams the next 5 games. They've got the Falcons, Saints, Broncos, Bears, and Raiders the next 5.
Say goodbye to the season. If
so just fold up the shop?
Who are they playing? Who's playing? Who's going to play quarterback for them?
His question is, should they trade for someone?
But there's nobody out there. Who are you going to go get?
Someone who's on a roster. You sign a guy like Matt Ryan, who I think would be a perfect fit. I think he could learn the offense fast.
I don't think Matt Ryan would want to come
maybe he wouldn't, but I'm saying if you're a quarterback who's sitting outside right now, doesn't have an opportunity, Carson Wentz and Matt Ryan, and you want one, this is the perfect spot. Their offensive line has been better of late. They will get Justin Jefferson back. Addison's blooming or blossoming. You've got Hawkinson too. Cam Akers is stepping up the running back spot. They're in the hunt for a potential playoff run. Like, if you want to get off the couch, as Justin Pugh said, get onto a roster and play meaningful football as a quarterback, this would be that opportunity and spot. And I think for the Vikings, Jeez, don't put me in this category.
Well, there you go. We got to break some news, Chris.
But the reality is the Vikings are also in a spot where, let's say they go get a Jameis Winston. Let's say they'll go get whoever you want as a backup quarterback that could come in. It's a legit opportunity to go in, to Chris's point, with their schedule and make a run at a playoff spot.
But as they are right now, they're not beating teams with what they have at quarterback.
I don't want to bet against them at this point.
If they play the kid from BYU Hall, they're going to beat teams?
Wait, isn't Mullins on the roster?
He is, but
which is who they traded for, knows the system from San Francisco. I'm not betting against this team, especially when they get Justin Jefferson back healthy. With Addison the way he's playing right now, I'm not betting against him.
Okay.
All right, let's get your underdog performance of the week here on HQ. It's brought to you by Fresh Pet. It's not dog food, it's food. And our underdogs are the Denver Broncos, who go up 5 spots in your rankings to number 26 after finally getting off the schneid against the Chiefs.
What's ridiculous, you had them at 31 in the first place.
You think that's a good football team?
I think they were better than you had them ranked last week.
Well, maybe they
they just proved they're a pretty good football team.
They proved it this week, so I moved them up. I mean, what are you going to do? They beat a good team. They finally beat the Chiefs. They beat a good football team. And their defense is getting better. It's getting better. There's no question about that.
And look, the passing game's getting better. They're starting to get in a flow and a sync in Sean Payton's offense.
Has Sean Payton fixed Russell Wilson?
I didn't think he was necessarily broken.
Well, he's broken last year.
Well, that's in your opinion. And we were
quarterback defender. Sound the alarm.
The reality is they're playing much better football. They're going to be competitive down the stretch. I think if they keep this formula up, like, look out. They could find their way into that playoff spot.
Is there a quarterback out there that you will not defend? Just give me one.
You look at it as defense. I'm just trying to provide perspective.
No, you defend.
You had a first-year head coach. You have a quarterback who's new to that place. I understand that, but that's some of the growing pains you go through when you're at all this newness.
He's got a new head coach and a new system now, and he's playing better.
And he's starting to play better, isn't he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so you blame Nate Hackett then?
I think there's a lot of things you could point the finger to.
You and Sean Payton, same guy. Blame Nate Hackett.
I love it when you sound the alarm for the QB defender.
The quarterback defender alarm.
I think it's ridiculous you had him at 31 last week, not 26. That's all you'll give them.
They're 26.
When are you guys on the Pick Six podcast this week?
I'm on today.
I'm not on with
today.
him.
Well, I'm actually doing a special one because I have a special podcast for trade deadline, and I'm on a different one for the power ranking. So it's entirely different.
Multiple Pick Six podcasts for Pete Prisco.
No, I'm on one.
What?
I'm on the one.
Just the one?
Just one.
Oh, you won't double it up this week?
No, not
people
Petey.
do the
Only
trade
get you
deadline.
once. All
Not
right.
Petey.